Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG, the show where longtime Mac and Apple users share practical tips, everyday workflows, and honest takes on Apple technology. I'm Marty Gencius, a college professor and podcaster, and tonight we're going to talk about something that's changed the way in which a lot of us eat. Not only how we get food, but how we get food to eat. A lot of this started, I think, with COVID. That's where this whole thing boomed. And it was the idea of food delivery. It's whether you're ordering takeout or your favorite restaurant without leaving the couch, having prepared meals shipped to your door, or getting groceries delivered on the same day. These options have just expanded incredibly over the last couple of years, and people are taking advantage of it. And our age group is taking advantage of it in different ways. So let's get started, and let's figure out who's with us tonight. As I said, I'm Marty Gencius, and we've got Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a 73-year-old Apple enthusiast from Bay Village, Ohio, a former foundryman and educator, currently retired. I've been a gung-ho user of computers and gadgets since high school, Apple hardware for about 25 years, and I love chatting about all the gear, software, and accessories I am using, or the gear, software, and accessories I wish I was using, with this old gang in our audience.
Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm a 78-year-old retiree here in Tucson, Arizona, and a member of the Tucson Mac User Group, where my colleague Bob Wood is tonight, running a board meeting. I've been a Mac user since the beginning, and spent time with Apple user groups and working for Apple and doing university IT. And now I'm retired and full-time with all my Apple toys. Not to say that I'm not in enormous anticipation of the developer conference that starts next Monday, but we won't go there. And how about you, Charlie?
Hi, Charlie Lindahl here from Houston, Texas. Got started with the Mac early, 1984, and actually the Lisa before that. I worked at A&M for 20 years and supported Macs, among other things. And I have my MacBook Pro and AirPods and Vision Pro. Got all kinds of neat toys, and I'm seriously contemplating getting an M5 system to do AI stuff anyway, and I'm really glad to be here.
Great. Well, we've got a great panel. We're missing Bob tonight, and Bob kind of bowed out, because he's got a board meeting. It's always the first Wednesday of the month he's got his board meeting for T-Mug, and that's understandable. But he also kind of said, I don't do a lot of online delivery, in terms of food or groceries. So this is probably a good one for him to sit out on. We do have some resources, and in an attempt to find resources, I tried to find online delivery stuff for food, and all they wanted to do was send me ads for the different online delivery services. But instead, I kind of went back, tweaked it a little bit, and really wanted some good websites that would instruct seniors on how to use food delivery, not just food delivery for meals, but also food delivery for groceries, and found some good ones. So here's what we've got. And all of these links will be in the show notes, so you can refer to them in the show notes, either in the video portion of the show notes or in the audio portion of the show notes. You'll be able to find the links. So if you're listening to it on a podcast, look in the show notes section, you'll find the links. This comes from Senior Planet, which is from AARP, or kind of a magazine from AARP. And it's got some information there, also downloads in terms of food app lecture handout from Senior Planet, so you might want to check that out. Also, how seniors can use DoorDash, a step-by-step guide to easy, affordable food delivery. We will talk about our experiences with food, meal delivery, and also with grocery delivery, and some explanations on why it can be value and how it can be used, step-by-step ways to set up DoorDash. This is from Retirement Hobby Guide. Then a guide for food delivery services for senior. This comes from Senior Living. And again, some more good information. Table of contents talking about the different types of services that are available, things that are positive and maybe some negative about it, and challenges with it. A guide for food delivery apps for older adults. So this gives you some more information, the top 5 food delivery apps that are out there that you can choose from, and talks about expense and stuff. Then from Inclinator, there is a story here about a guide for seniors using grocery delivery apps, and talks about looking into mobile grocery services for seniors. And then 5 ways seniors can have food delivered to their door. So another article, this comes from ourparents.com. And then this was an interesting one from GoGoGrandparent.com. Meal delivery services for elderly and disabled people, and the meals are delivered from local restaurants near you. And I believe this one is done through the phone, so you don't have to have a tech interface to be able to do that. You can just call the number and they will make that happen for you in terms of meals. And then finally, meal delivery services for the elderly. This comes from Parent Care Guide, Options for Every Need. So it talks about government, nonprofit, prepared meal delivery, meal kits, grocery delivery, and restaurant delivery options that are in this guide. So lots of good resources for folks, whether you are someone who is in need of this or you know someone who's in need of this. Go to the show note portion of the podcast or the video cast, and you'll find the links to get to these. And it was Chris during the day. He really said, guys, you ought to take a look at these links. They're good links. Marty's found some gems in here in terms of that. And I appreciate that, putting that together. Let's go ahead and start with the first question, shall we? Do you personally use food or grocery delivery? Walk us through how you actually use it, which services, how often, and what you typically order. And I'll start this round and this time. I order it way too much because I have a wonderful wife. We have been married for 42 years. We've known each other longer than that. But she's not a cook, and she knows she's not a cook. And so that burden has generally fallen in my direction. And the problem is, I teach, and the program that I teach in and the curriculum that I teach in is a graduate program that runs from around 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 8 o'clock at night, which is the perfect time to pony up to a table and start cooking a meal. But by then, when I get out, I'm really already hungry. I do not want to spend another hour or so putting a meal together, and I really don't want to do it beforehand, and then there's the work that's involved in it. So 2 to 3 times a week, we're probably using a DoorDash service. DoorDash is the one that we primarily use in order to get food delivered to us. We could talk about groceries in another question and how that's managed, but what I usually order is Asian food, and I like different styles of that. And what I can do is order larger orders. So instead of a pint, I order a quart. And it's not that I'm going to eat a quart, but for me to order multiple pints over the week, it's easier for me just to order a quart and then have it and use it through the whole week, which is a trick that I do. It cuts down on the delivery costs. It cuts down on the overall food costs if we plan ahead that way with our delivery. But that's kind of the style that we have, and we do vary things. We order things from sandwich shops and things like that. But typically, when I think of certain stores that we order food from, what I'll do is order a larger amount, knowing, and even some of the amounts nowadays, tell our listeners, are so big that you shouldn't finish them anyways in one sitting. So even normal settings or normal amounts that come from restaurants, it's sort of like, okay, this is going to be 2 meals, maybe 3. So you got to think about that in terms of the economy and the cost too. So that's how I order, when I actually use it, and what services that I kind of use and how often I use it. Peter.
Yeah, I consider myself to be an occasional kind of half-baked user, but you all can be the judge. We order regularly online, but don't have it delivered. For example, we order groceries every Thursday from 2 local stores, doing the selection on the store's websites using our computers. And there is some back and forth with the shoppers on occasion via text messages. And when it's time, I use a texted web link or store app link to indicate that I'm on my way, and in one case, that I've arrived. The store app case figures out where I am from my location. I drive over, open my trunk, and they load me up. And restaurants are pretty similar. We prefer to pick up. Most of the few we use run the payments and order retention through a service called Toast. I think there's some other ones as well. And when we're visiting our daughter who lives near to a college town, that's where we use an app, a restaurant app called Snack Pass, which has an elaborate reward system, which as good parents, we have set to shuttle any points we earn to her. How about you, Chris?
Well, Marty once again has pulled together this amazing series of websites, like you said earlier. So really, if you're new in all of this online stuff with food, check out the links. There's some good ones. I think like Zoom, online groceries got their big kickstart during COVID. And, my wife and I didn't really catch on until about 6 months ago. And we don't really get restaurant deliveries because everything here, with 1 or 2 exceptions, well, really only one, is more than 20 minutes away. And it's just, is the food still going to be warm, and da-da-da-da-da, and so on. My wife does love to cook, except when she runs out of energy. But so about 6 months ago, she started checking out online groceries. And, the first time around, it was rough, because she had to figure out the app. She, runs an Android phone. And so I can't really help her with that, being an Apple guy. But the app works fine. And she actually looked at several of our grocery stores. I'll get into a little bit more detail on this, but, tried the Kroger app. And the first week it was a little rough, but boy, the second week, oh my God, it's just like Amazon. They know what you bought last time. So for the items, your previous orders, and the stuff you order frequently, she can just zip down the app and go milk, carrot juice, coffee, blah, whatever. And it doesn't take any time at all. And it's very convenient when we drive over. The store has 6 parking spaces with an individual door that is only for the online shopping staff people to bring out stuff on carts. They keep it refrigerated. Even with our hot climate here in southern Arizona, load up the back of the car. And we were both astonished at how much time we saved by not going through the store. This store is quite popular, and if we don't get there early in the morning, it's crammed with people. And it is so much easier to do it online. Now, that's not to say we do all the groceries that way, okay? Sue also likes Sprouts, and our pharmacy is at Walmart Neighborhood Market, which is a great and friendly, very capable pharmacy. And Walmart's got great prices, and they happen to be really close. So, we sort of spread it out a little bit, but, it's just such a game saver or game changer, excuse me, in terms of time savings. Um, yeah. So, what do you think, Charlie?
I don't use a whole lot of delivery services because my Kroger is like 10 minutes from my house, so it's fairly easy to get to. Um, but I will say that there have been times when it's like, super raining and stuff, and I do the advanced pickup thing and go to the nearby parking, reserved parking spaces, and have them brave the rain and stuff. Um, and it's really nice for if you're at a meeting, a long meeting, and you want to have food. I recently worked the elections here locally, and we ordered pizza, and that was kind of cool. Um, anyway, so on to the next question.
So the next question is, what's the one thing you figured out, a trick, a setting, or a habit that made these apps noticeably easier or cheaper once you discovered it? There are a couple of tricks. First thing I did, we used to have a Chinese restaurant that was here since we moved here 26 years ago. And it was our kind of go-to. Everybody liked it in our family. The prices were reasonable. Every year, the lady would give me a calendar. I mean, there are certain things about the experience that was just the perfect store. And for no reason, one day they closed up. No notice, no nothing, no advance warning, disappeared. So that kind of put us on the trail to look for new places. The thing about that we discovered, or that I discovered with with the restaurant that closed up, was there was a significant difference in price between what you ordered through a food delivery service like DoorDash versus whether I called it up on the phone and asked it to pick it up, or those were the two options. It wasn't that inconvenient for me to leave class, drive over, pick it up versus leave class, go home, and have it on my doorstep. And the price cost was such that often I would do that. I'd call it in for pickup instead of using a food service. They didn't have their own delivery service, so it was food services that were coming in like Grubhub and DoorDash and such. But the upcharge that was on that. So one of the things that I figured out was kind of pay attention. And if you are in an area where you're also using that restaurant and you're going in person, pay attention to the price differences between what you see there and what you see when you order it on a food service kind of situation. My wife pretty much orders the same thing from each restaurant when we go online, so that makes it easier. The apps remember just like the grocery apps, the food delivery that Chris referred to, the food delivery apps, the meal delivery apps remember what you ordered the last time and the last date. And so often it makes it easier to punch those couple of things in. And Aileen never really changes her orders on stuff, so I'll get experimental sometime. But generally, it makes it easy with that kind of memory in the app for the food that you've already gotten. So that makes it easier. I also, it's just my habit, I tip the driver well. A lot of times people are stiffed, and those drivers are working hard. And they're in a situation where they're trying to earn a living or earn supplemental income. And so if they're going to do the convenience of getting it to my doorstep for me, they deserve a healthy tip. And so we do that, and you do that through the app, of course. You look for things like Dasher deals. You can. They also have some habits where here's the restaurant, and there's a grocery store between your home and your restaurant. Hey, we could swing by the grocery store and pick up a pint of ice cream if you want. And sometimes those, if you're planning or trying to do kind of a full meal and dessert with friends coming over, those swing bys to pick up additional items at another location are kind of helpful. So pay attention to those options, but be careful about looking at what the store order price is and what the food delivery price is on the same item of food, because there's going to be an upcharge on it. Peter.
Well, my answer, like earlier, is not very app-centric. The only thing that might be considered a trick, setting, or habit is the fact that we subscribe to more than a dozen staple food items from places I would not have initially expected, mainly Amazon and Sam's Club. And I love that Sam's Club generally uses little or no packaging, so there's nothing I need to throw away right away. Subscriptions are great for less perishable items for the most part, and these are delivered and at no cost, unlike all the things we go pick up. Of course, there's no delivery cost on those either, but I really like ordering that way. Chris.
That's a good point, Peter. We order a lot from Amazon because there's just some things that are just easier. I get the exact Tylenol pills that I want, or Advils, or and some of those are hard to gel caps to get through the regular drugstores, etc. And we've got such a large senior population here in Tucson that some of these pharmacies look like they're there only to fill prescriptions, so the rest of the drugstore isn't that helpful. But I haven't used subscriptions on Amazon, although I've been tempted. And I know I'm a little leery of subscriptions because just they mount up and then you forget to get charged for stuff. But I would say in terms of tricks, there's two things. One is figuring out the online interface, whether it's an app, whether it's a website, whether there's a number you can call and they will take your order in terms of food and stuff like that. The other thing that was sort of an interesting, I would call it, well, I don't know if it's a trick or a benefit, but I discovered after a month or so that we were spending less money on groceries. And it was very interesting because, when you got the list, you get the specific things, unless you forget something, which it's a little bit easier actually than going to the store for Sue and having a list in her purse, which she forgets to look at and, forgets the milk, which is why the reason she went in there. But I think that's a sleeper thing, that you can actually end up spending less money and saving money on groceries. And, and then like she'll still go to Sprouts, she'll still go to Walmart and pick up things that, make sense there. But it's such a time saver for the staples and the basic stuff that's heavy and it's a hassle, and checking out is a hassle. It can be crowded. And see, the one thing about the Kroger stores, I should point this out, is these folks have really figured out groceries. Like the coupons we get are on the items we buy. Okay, it's not like something, they've got an overstock or something and they're discounting it. No, it's the stuff we actually buy. And they also have buy one, get one frees frequently. And that again is stuff that we buy. And so my wife totaled it up for a couple of months, and she figured out by the end of the day, with the various discounts, Kroger was not that much more expensive than Walmart. And that's really extraordinary when you think about it, because the basic pricing on the face of it seems to be a lot cheaper at Walmart. But when you get through with the stuff you actually buy and get the discounts and stuff. So anyway, worth doing the homework on, and I'll talk more about that next time. Charlie?
Yeah, one thing you might want to consider is logging on as guest when you get the deliveries, as opposed to having a user ID, because it can avoid getting inundated with ads from whatever the source is. That said, I do have the Kroger app, and I use it a lot, both in store and outside. And I guess my major thing is, and I'll add to or follow the suggestion that Marty said, make sure you tip the drivers. They really need it, and I think it's worth the effort. And if you do it, if you get the same driver a couple times in a row, they'll make it even, they'll be even more careful when they're serving you. So anyway, next question.
Yeah, our next question is, what's the biggest frustration you've run into with delivery apps? Wrong orders, fees, confusion, interfaces, and how do you deal with it? I'm sure I've run into some frustrations. I use them frequent enough where I don't make too many mistakes with them. So, and I haven't had the need to have to turn around and correct something. Generally, it's a minor mistake or a minor error on my part, and I just deal with it. I eat something different, or they shouldn't have put mushrooms in it. I'll pick the mushrooms out. But there's one case, and I found this true with the delivery app, and it was with DoorDash. I was on a trip to Atlanta, and I had been on a flight and through airports all day long, and I finally got to my hotel, and I was really, really, really hungry. So I got on DoorDash, and it knew what I had to put in to use location services, and had to put in specifically where I wanted the hotel that I wanted to deliver it to. I don't think I had to put I had to put my room in, although they didn't deliver to the room. I've had it delivered to the room in some cases, but in this case it didn't. So I ordered a nice big meal and didn't think anything about it. And then my phone starts notifying me that, and I've got my meal there. My phone starts notifying me that my order for Five Guys has gone through, and it should be there sometime in the next hour. And I was like, I didn't make an order from Five Guys. And then I realized what it was Aileen was back here in Kent, and she placed an order but didn't change the address, so it was going to be delivered to my hotel room.
Oh.
Because that's where they thought the order was going to go to. So I called Aileen. I said, I will straighten that out for you. But it was too late to really do anything about the delivery in Atlanta. But I did get in touch with the driver. And after have been walking downtown in Atlanta to get to the hotel, there are a lot of homeless people. There are a lot of people who need food. And so I contacted the driver and I said, hey, listen, I just had a big meal. There's a mix-up. Please give the bag of food to someone who needs it, who's hungry, who needs it, because I certainly don't, and it would just be a waste on me. So always make sure, check the address if you're using these, particularly if you switched locations and I go to Chicago a lot. You got to make sure it doesn't wind up going to some place you're not at some point. Peter.
Yeah, I think we're lucky we only have one thing as a frustration in many years of doing this. Our favorite grocery store a year or so ago decided to drop out of the Instacart system and roll their own website. And I so wish they had waited until Claude Code had come out to cobble it together, because it was awful for a while. Occasionally it would burp and lose your cart. And just as you're ready to say, go, that's my order, you needed to start over. Or they wouldn't show items that we know are there in the store. My wife does the ordering, so I dealt with it by consoling her. So I didn't have much to do other than just be a good husband. The good news is, though, that they have continued to debug and improve the site, and it works pretty well now. Chris, how about you?
Well, like you, Peter, my wife does most of the online grocery ordering. And so the key is for her figuring it out and help her with that. But the problems we've run into in the past over the years, when you could call up the pizza place, order the pizza in advance, they say, okay, it's going to be ready in 35 minutes, and you show up, right? Well, it's the usual thing. Like they drop the order, or you call the wrong branch of the pizza store. That's a good one. You show up and it's at a different store, and these kinds of things. But honestly, using the Kroger app has been pretty bulletproof for us, and we don't really, like I said, get anything delivered. However, my older son has 3 little kids at home, and his wife has frequently ordered and just getting stuff delivered because she's working too, somewhat from home. And so it saves them a ton of time, and it's more than worth it to get groceries delivered. So there's that option too. And, as all of us as seniors we start to figure out sooner probably than later that, over the years, things are going to slow down a little bit and change. And so planning ahead is not a bad idea. Charlie?
Yeah, I don't use delivery services much, so I really haven't had any issues. And I do tend to shop in store, but although I don't usually use the parking spots when they have incredibly heavy rain, I may do it in advance and have them delivered to my car. Other than that, no problem, and I've not had any issues.
All right. Final question. What's your single best tip for an OMG listener who's never ordered delivery and wants to try it this week? If you live in an area that you might already know the places that you like to eat, pick a familiar restaurant so that you get the experience of the service of having food delivery without having to worry about dealing with the food and with new food. The other tip I have is with grocery deliveries, sometimes, at least my experience is that I've had to get used to substitutions and whether or not that's really a viable option. You want this. If you're really brand loyal, you might run into some disappointments with grocery, at least my experience with grocery. And I'm not that brand loyal. There's a few things I am, but you have to get used to the flexibility of that. If you particularly need that food item for your order, it might have to be a substitution for a food item. There is a link in the show notes that talks about if you're a first-time user, this will walk you through how to do DoorDash. That's a pretty good link to start with. I always suggest find somebody who's done it and have them set it up on your device and show you how it can be done. Don't try to go into it on your own. It's not that it's not difficult. It's always easier when you've got an experienced friend who's sitting next to you that can walk you through it. Peter.
Yeah, I would agree with Marty. I would say start by ordering something you like from a place you know, and if possible, a place that knows you. That is to say, start with what's likely to be a good experience. And following up on Marty's comment on grocery substitutions, there are 2 things I would say. Number 1, put substitution instructions in the comments of your item order, including the comment, no substitution. Text expansion is a good tactic if your ordering system doesn't allow reorders that include prior comments. Ours do at this point in time. And 2, be ready for some dialogue with your shopper. We've had good shoppers for the most part, and we take advantage of that fact. Many take pictures of possible subs and send them to us, but we need to think teenage turnaround time on texting to get back to them right away. They're busy. They're shopping. They have somebody else to shop for after you. So those are my suggestions. Chris.
Yeah, if you ever see the big carts going through the grocery store, probably most of us have. And at Kroger, what they have is this enormous thing that looks like a small train. And, on each of these carts, they'll have like a dozen different baskets, and they'll go to dairy and get everybody's dairy, and then et cetera, around the store. And so, what my wife has figured out is just she never does substitutes. So that takes care of that. And I would suggest starting with staples, things that are easy, make it easier on yourself. But the first step, and this may take a little homework, is think about your grocery um, world there, wherever you live. I mean, what are the stores that you like, and then what's convenient to pick up. So the first thing is the app, like we've talked about. Charlie and I have both really had good experience with the Kroger app, and if you've got a Kroger chain in your vicinity, you might try them, or at least try their app and use that as a basis of comparison. I can't speak for Safeway. I can't speak for Albertsons because we don't shop there either. There's a pretty good local chain called Basha's, which we also don't shop at. But we do stop by Trader Joe's once in a while. But of all of these, it turned out that the Kroger chain, which is called Fry's here in Tucson, it was the best with their app and stuff, and it worked out really well. Um, Let me see the next thing. Oh, yeah, check their parking lot for access. Because, like I mentioned with our Kroger store, Fry's, there are spaces there right at the front. And the only thing that's a little bit of a hassle is when we leave and back out. Sometimes it's a giant pickup truck next to us, and, it takes a while before, we can see around the pickup truck to leave. And it's a busy store. But generally, that's the least of our problems. Now, if you have a store that, the parking is reserved and it's not convenient, or they're really not into online shopping, and you'll find that out really fast, or maybe you just pick one and try that and start small, like we said. Um, the other thing too is our Kroger has these pretty thick plastic recyclable bags, and they have a bin out front because we'd had a huge pile of them piling up over the couple of months. And, my wife said, well, there's a recycle bin right over there. So I quickly hustled out, and now I recycle the bags, which is a good thing. Also, one thing we haven't talked about is coupons. If you have online coupons, you can incorporate them in the order. If you don't, and the staff person who brings out the groceries will usually ask, do you have any paper coupons? And if you do, then they'll do a refund on the spot against your order. So, it's pretty bulletproof. Um, one other thing, in terms of, this isn't a problem for us in terms of medications and pharmacy, but if your pharmacy is important in terms of linking that to picking up groceries, then that you might want to add that into your decision making about wherever your pharmacy is. If it's at a supermarket, you know, maybe that's where you want to try or something like that. For us, it's not an issue. Um, and I think that's all. Oh, the other thing is too, this is somewhat of a changing landscape, mostly for the better. And, keep after it and look around and, talk to friends and find out who's using what service and so on, because you may get some really good ideas from that. Um, and I think that's all I've got. Charlie?
We've made this point before, but it bears repeating. Um, if you go to a particular store, see if they have an app that's local to that store. You'll get the better discounts and better service and so forth and so on. The other thing is that you may want to uh, uh, enter or do the DoorDash or the delivery thing in guest mode. If you have a user ID with your phone number and everything like that, you may get bombarded with ads. But that's my only major tip there.
Okay. So take a look at the show notes for folks. Any other comments from the group before we close out? Peter.
Yeah, just one thing I thought of as we were talking, and that's ask your store when they do sales. I mean, the stores near us will give you a calendar in many cases, just saying, in third week in March, we do coffee, second week in July, we do these cereals, things like that. And you can load up then and save yourself a lot of money.
Yeah, we had a local store that did meat week every once a year, and it was just insane. Chris.
Yeah, and speaking of that, a lot of stores have senior discounts. Like I think for Safeway, I think it's first Tuesday. Apparently for our Kroger, it's first Wednesday. I did not know. I just learned that today. So, and it's 10% off for seniors. I don't know if that's all items, but these things add up, and for seniors on a tight budget, can be helpful.
Okay, let's figure out where people can find you if they want to get in touch with you. Peter.
Yes, I am at Ppetto, P-P-E-T-T-O, most everywhere. Insta, Facebook, and most all of the major and second tier socials that I don't regularly check, although a few of them ping me if something comes in, and I think that's nice.
Chris.
Yes, I have chriswesselmanphotography.com, mostly historical stuff. On Blue Sky and Flickr, I am at Chris W47-AZ for Arizona. And on Threads and Instagram, I am Chris.Wesselman. Charlie?
And I have a lot of email aliases. The one I like to use for meetings and such is meetup@cyberchuck.org, which I've just put in the notes.
Okay. And as for me, you can find me at Jensius on Blue Sky. That's Jensius, Jencius, on Blue Sky or Mastodon. And you can also find all the shows, including this show, on our website, ThePodTalk.net. So check out ThePodTalk.net, some cool shows on there. We just did an episode of Fade to Chat where we talked about the Maltese Falcon, classic movies on that show. And this week it was the Maltese Falcon. Next episode, we're going to do, I don't know, I'm curious to see if you guys know this one, Father Goose. Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up from Peter. Yeah, it's Cary Grant. I'll tell you, I have watched that film again, and I haven't seen it since maybe I was 15 years old. This time I noticed all the black and white Scotch because my college days had that arc that included black and white Scotch. So the first time I saw the movie, I don't know what that is. Now it was like, black and white Scotch. So check that out, Fade to Chat. You can find it on thepodtalk.net. Hey, we've had some visitors. We had Victoria Gutierrez, who joined us tonight to make some comments in the chat room. So we appreciate you joining us. Thanks, the rest of you, for joining us on the Old Mac Gang. Generally, new episodes drop YouTube at youtube.com/@theoldmacgang. on Wednesday nights. If you have a tip, a correction, a topic idea, reach us at ThePodTalkNetwork@gmail.com or visit ThePodTalk.net. Spread the word to other longtime Mac users. You got to face up to it. You're now part of the Old Mac Gang.